Hey guys, Chris Ross here with 8 Digit Media. Does this sound familiar with you? You get a lead that comes in, you want to give them a follow-up call, you dial them up, and the first thing you say is, hey, this is Chris from Chris Ross Wealth Management. You recently signed up for one of our webinars. Just giving you a call to see if you want to schedule a 15-minute complimentary consultation. If that is you, what I have for you today are 2 ways that you can actually trick your leads into telling you the problem that they have so that you can solve that problem on the very first follow-up conversation that you make with them. Let's get into it. Earlier this week, I was having a conversation with one of our clients during one of our monthly meetings, and something interesting was stated during this meeting that made me think about a book that I previously read, which was called The Ask Method by Ryan Levesque. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Ryan Levesque, or maybe you've read the book, but the whole book is really about creating an easy way to get leads to basically tell you what it is that they want so that you can sell them. So his whole idea is basically around using quizzes and surveys to get people to fill out these forms or fill out these quizzes. Through these quizzes, these people will tend to kind of tell you what it is that they're looking for. And then really at the end, you're wanting to take those responses and figure out how you can sell whatever it is that you're actually doing. So this particular advisor that I was speaking with, we were going over some of their webinar metrics. And there were a couple of things that they were bringing to my attention that they were using as a result of the webinars that we were helping them with. So one thing, and this was quite interesting, I had never ever even thought about this before, but they were actually looking at the time in which people register for their webinars because they were using that as a way to determine when to potentially call and follow up with leads. So for example, let's say that you're having a webinar next week and campaign is already running and you have someone that registered at like 1 o'clock in the morning. So the way that they were looking at this is people who tend to register late at night, what they found was that those people were the most difficult to follow up with. And their kind of assumption here is that, maybe these people are just kind of night owls, they're up, they're not really available during the day. So when it comes to trying to follow up with these people, they were a little bit harder to reach. People who were registering, during, I would just say like normal business hours, those people were easier to reach. So what they were doing was they was taking this data and then segmenting out the leads in order to prioritize who it is that they were going to follow up with first. Now that was one thing. The other thing that they were looking at, and this is what's going to relate back to the Ask Method and what Ryan talks about, is there is one question that they ask on the registration forms every time somebody opts in for one of their webinars. And that question is, what is the single biggest challenge that you have with planning for retirement? Now, this is an open-ended question that's on the form. And of course, you're going to get some people who are going to answer the question with maybe 1 or 2 word answers. But what they're really looking for are the people who tend to write a little bit more of a longer sentence. So if you're asking someone that question and they say, well, I've saved X amount of dollars and I'm really trying to understand how RMDs are going to affect me in the next 12 months because I have to start taking them. If I were to get that as a response, that's someone who clearly understands what a particular problem is and they don't have the answer to it at the current moment, right? Because they're signing up for the webinar. This is going to give me a conversation anchor or a conversation starter when I go to follow up with that person. If we kind of combine what they were looking at initially, which is when do people register, right? Let's just assume that they register during, normal working hours. They know that they can probably call this person and have a really good chance of actually connecting on that particular phone call. But then when that person picks up the phone, hi, my name is Chris. I'm calling from, ABC Wealth Management. You registered for our webinar. You mentioned that you're going to be starting to take your RMDs in the next 12 months and you're unsure about how that's going to affect you. Is this something that you still need help with? That's a easy conversation starter versus just saying, hey, this is Chris calling from ABC Wealth Management and I'm calling to follow up because you registered for our webinars and we want to see if you want to schedule a 15-minute complimentary consultation. That's not going to be as strong of a opening if you actually lead with the problem that they told you that they had versus just saying, hey, we're here to offer you a complimentary consultation. This has been a really good way that they've been able to follow up with leads, have very specific conversations with them that actually leads to the actual consultation that gets scheduled, which also rolls over into their discovery calls and then people actually becoming clients. So this will be one of the things that I would definitely recommend that you start to do on any kind of opt-in forms that you may have. So whether it's a webinar or a seminar, if it's a lead form on your website, if it's a contact form on your website, anywhere where people people are going to input their name, email, and phone number, you definitely want to have some kind of question on any kind of form that's going to help you understand where people are in the buyer's journey, what kind of problem it is that they may have, so that when it's time to follow up with them, that you can have a specific line of questioning that's going to lead them to potentially making a decision, which will hopefully lead to them becoming a client for you. One of the things that we were going over in this particular monthly meeting was obviously looking for ways in order to increase the number of leads that are actually generating. So for them, it's not necessarily important that people book consultations right at the end of the webinar for them, because they're going to call all of their leads. This is one of the advisors that I have that, again, still kind of use a little bit of some old school tactics of just following up with everybody. So for them, the more people who register, the more people who fill out this form, the more descriptive people are with answering that particular question, that leads them to have better conversations with the leads that they are actually following up with. So for them, it's a very important question, and having these follow-ups or having this data in order to start these conversations with them is definitely one of the things that leads to more qualified consultations for them. If I had to say anything, I would say it would be a scaled down version of how you can use the ask method to get leads to tell you what it is that they want so that you can actually help them. The whole thing really just goes back to, if you ask people what they want, they'll generally tell you, and then you only need to just find a way to give it to them. So most people are trying to sell people on whatever it is that they think they should have versus asking the client what it is that they want and then actually give it to them. So that's a much easier path. If I just say, hey, I want a Snickers, but you only have a Twix, well, I don't want the Twix, I want the Snickers. So if I tell you, hey, I want a Snickers, and you just give me the Snickers, okay, then hey, I'm happy. I mean, very simple analogy, but that's really what we're trying to do here, is just trying to make it easier for people to say yes. So ask and you shall receive. Because you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that you're obviously a financial advisor and you're looking for more ways in order to maybe convert some of those leads that are coming through the door. Really, what you want to think about is, what are some of the things that what I would call like decision triggers. So you want to think about, what are some of the things that actually lead someone to a point in which they are going to decide that they need to reach out and actually hire a financial advisor. And if you can figure out maybe what some of these decision triggers are, you want to build those into your opt-in process, because again, this is going to give you the ability to segment out these leads and either send them specific content for follow-up purposes, give this to your team that's doing outbound calls in order to follow up with people. Also, whenever you do get them on the call, this really can become more of a conversation anchor, meaning you can always tie their decision to take the next step back to this original problem. So if you get on a call with someone and you go through whatever it is that they're having a problem with, and you get to the end and they can't quite make a decision on what the next step is going to be, you can always tie this back to the original problem. Meaning, hey, if we leave this call today and you don't have a decision for this particular problem, what is that going to look like for you in the next 12 months, right? So using the example that I gave earlier, if their RMDs are going to be kicking in the next 12 months and they don't make a decision today, the result may be, hey, they're going to get taxed on more of their distributions, which is likely going to be the most obvious thing that's going to happen there. But really, you want to try to get people to make a decision faster. And the way that you can do that is always tie it back to the problem that they currently have that they have not solved yet. My ideal clients are going to be people who are already established. So they've probably been in business for 10 plus years. Most of them have been in business for 20 plus years. Most people are going to be somewhere around 50 million in AUM and higher. The milestone for most advisors is to get to 100 million. So if you're at 100 million, you're doing pretty good and you're continuing on the scale. But yeah, if you're at 50 million AUM and above, those tend to be the types of clients that we work with the most. Quite honestly, there are definitely a bunch of other services that are out there that are more expensive than what it is that we do. So definitely not the high ticket. I would say, at least for us, we would be the people who are really just specialists in the two things that we do the most, which is webinars and seminars. I think that's really the main reason why people come to us outside of everybody else that's kind of out there in the market right now. Webinars are definitely not at a point where they're oversaturated or anything. So I was talking with one of my clients that's actually here in Texas, and this particular advisor is someone who has done seminars his whole entire career, and we help him with his seminars right now. He's doing an awesome job at them. He was telling me about all the great results that he was getting, and during this particular conversation I was bringing up the fact that another advisor was doing something similar, but he was doing it with webinars. And he was like, all right, Chris, tell me, are webinars for real, or is that just what everybody is saying? So I was like, actually, yes, they are definitely for real, right? For people who have tried webinars and they haven't been able to get them to work, it isn't because the webinars don't work. There's something wrong with their process. And it generally comes down to the virtual sales process is what I was telling him. So I was letting him know that, hey, just like we can get people to sign up and show up to your seminars, we can do the exact same thing for webinars. What people have the biggest problem with is starting to close those people. So if you could develop a process in order to do virtual sales, then hey, webinars are going to open the door for you, because now you don't have to just do your in-person events in the city and county it is that you currently reside in. You could be targeting all of the state of Texas or all of the country. So this got him to thinking about different ways that he can basically scale up his particular practice with a lot of the new advisors that are coming in to work for him without them necessarily having to do more in-person events. So there's still a lot of room for growth for webinars, mainly because not as many advisors are doing them right now. Also, people who are obviously consuming this kind of content, there's more and more of those individuals too, and people every day that gets more comfortable with the whole idea of conducting business online and not necessarily having to see the advisor in person. So I believe webinars are gonna be a thing here for the very long term. If not in webinar format, it's definitely gonna be in some kind of video format, because this is the best way to have a conversation with two different people. So whether it's webinars, whether or not it's video sales letters, whether it's just short form video content on YouTube or whatever the case may be, there really isn't much of a difference. And I really just kind of liken it to the old school infomercials. These infomercials, they're still on TV. Like, people are still buying stuff from QVC of all places. It's still in business. It's still going to work. It's still going to continue to work. So if you're still listening and maybe you're not convinced that like, hey, this stuff actually works and you can just keep doing what it is that you've always been doing, I have another story from another client that's actually doing something similar, but in a different manner. So what they are doing is whenever someone signs up for their seminar, on the confirmation page, there is a short survey that they ask the registrants to fill out. And what they are doing with this data is they are taking the data from the actual survey, and then they're using that in order to create content for the seminar itself. Because again, people are literally telling them who it is that they are, what it is that they need help with, what kind of information it is that they're looking for. And this gives them the ability in order to create a seminar experience that's going to be obviously informational for the people who are going to show up, but is more than likely going to answer those pressing problems that the potential lead has, which means that when these people actually show up to the seminar, they're getting the content that is actually useful for them, which also gives the advisor the opportunity to kind of showcase their expertise on the matter, which is going to start to build that trust that you're going to need, which is going to lead to them being able to book a consultation with you. So whether you are asking questions on the front end of your funnel, meaning on a registration page, or if you're asking these questions after people have opted in on a confirmation page, or perhaps even in an email, my recommendation would definitely be a confirmation page, because everybody sees the confirmation page and it's a lot easier to get people to take action right after they have opted in. The point here is that the data that you can collect is definitely going to lead to you having better follow-up conversations and producing content that's going to actually get seen and opened by the people who opt in for your seminars and webinars. Now that I've shared a couple of stories with you on how some of our clients are using a scaled down version of the ask method in order to get leads to tell them what it is that they want so that they can close them, I'm interested in knowing whether or not you have done something like this in the past, or maybe you've read the ask method and thought about implementing some of this in your business, or have implemented some of this in your practice. I'd like to know what kind of results that you may have seen whenever you deployed a strategy similar to this. So leave a comment below. I'll be happy to read it. And and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video.